Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Judy Huntley, and I'm the Director of Education and Marketing for the Pennsylvania Psychological Association.
I'm Valerie Lemon. I am the chair of the Program and Education Board and the Proposal Selection Committee.
That's right. That's who we are. And today we are just going to take a couple minutes, hopefully not too long, but give you an overview of our call for proposals form. And this would be for any proposal that you're submitting for a workshop, a continuing education workshop with PPA. This could be virtual, this could be at our annual convention or one of our spring and fall conferences, or again, it's virtual as one of our webinar series. And we're going to talk about some best practices. We're going to mention some questions that we get from people as they're filling out their form. And if we ever have to go back to a presenter, we can tell you why we would normally do that, so that hopefully when you're filling out your proposal, you can avoid some of these mistakes that others have made, or it might be helpful if you've never done it and you just have some questions. So what I'm going to do is start by walking through the call for proposals form. We have two different versions. This is the PDF Adobe version. The other one is a Word document. The information that we request is the same from both. So while what you have might look a little bit different, the information that we need is the same. So all of this information too, or a majority of it, is required by the American Psychological Association. And we are accredited to offer continuing education credit through the American Psychological Association. So in order for us to continue accrediting these programs and being able to offer CE for those who take them, we have to follow the rules and guidelines set by APA. So we're not just asking these questions for fun. We're asking these questions because APA requires it, and we need to have this information in order to offer these programs. We also, not only do we have to do this, we want to offer CE programs that are appropriate for learning for our doctoral level psychologists and those who will be doctoral level psychologists. So I'm just gonna jump in here. We're gonna start. The title of the program. We have a max of 73 characters. Now this one is not an APA requirement. This one is a PPA's registration system will not allow a title longer than 73 characters. So that is why we ask that you kind of keep it as succinct as possible. If you need to, in the description, you can kind of add a little bit more of a title, but the title, that is why we have that limitation there. Program description, this is what we use to let people know what your program is. So when people are looking to decide if they have 3 different options, what they want to attend, this is where they'll make that decision. So you want to, again, be succinct, but you want to make sure you get across what your program is. For the client base, this is who will benefit from what it is your topic is. If it's everybody, you can just select everything. If it's, just general, otherwise just select if it's adult, child, or senior adult. Content area, this is helpful as we're kind of determining where this should go, and also helpful as people are trying to decide, again, what workshops to attend. Specifically, ethics, for it to qualify for ethics credit from the State Board of Psychology, it has to include the word ethics in the title or definitely in the objectives. But you can mark here if you feel that your workshop qualifies for ethics, would qualify for ethics credit. Otherwise, you can see the different options. There's also an other. If you don't feel that your program fits into any of these options we have, you can just type it in here. Number of hours. Programs have to be, for APA to give credit, they have to be at least 1 hour long. After an hour, we can give credit for in 15-minute increments. So it has to be at least an hour. But if you wanted to offer a workshop that is 1 hour and 15 minutes long, you could do that. Generally, we do 1 hour and 3 hour workshops. That's just how PPA has done things and how kind of we're structured. If you don't feel that that fits for your program, don't try to make it fit. And Valerie, I don't know if you have anything you want to kind of throw in here. When we get proposals and somebody has two objectives, but they have a 3-hour program, that's when we start wondering in the proposal selection committee, is this appropriate? I don't know if you have anything you want to add.
Yeah, I know that sometimes, 1 hour seems too short and 3 hours might seem too long. So somebody might be like, well, I'll do something for 2 hours. Just on a pragmatic level, I think it's tough sometimes then if you have, a 3-hour workshop being offered at the same time as a 2-hour workshop, and that you might accidentally disadvantage yourself by offering a 2-hour workshop because other people might choose the other workshop instead, simply to make sure that they're getting enough hours for licensure. And so yeah, we're not asking you to like sort of expand it beyond what is reasonable or what seems relevant for the topic. But yeah, probably if it's a 2-hour workshop, it could easily be a 3-hour workshop by doing some of the things that I'm going to talk about later on in our time together today.
Great. And this is very specifically what Valerie is talking about, would be maybe for our convention, when there would be multiple other programs going on at the same time that we would be trying to fit the program in. This is a standalone or a virtual presentation, trying to fit that time in like a 2 versus a 3-hour program is not quite the same, issue there. If you have questions about any of these individual things, very specific to your own proposal that you want to submit, we'll give our information at the end, but Valerie and I are available to answer any of these questions, as well as the proposal selection committee in general. As we move back here to the call for proposals form, the next piece is the program learning objectives. This is really very important. APA focuses a lot on this, and Valerie, Dr. Lemon is going to talk about this after I run through this program. Just going to say the easiest way for you to write your objective is to start with the beginning of the sentence. At the conclusion of this program, participants will be able to, and then you fill it in. What will the participants be able to do? And this is again very specific. APA requires this. You want to have measurable objectives. And so that is why we are looking at and using these verbs. We have it on the proposal form, so we hope that you will use that. But list, describe, recite, write, compute, these things, rather than something that is not measurable, like know or understand or learn. You really can't measure how much you know, especially not with our evaluation form, where we're just evaluating the objective. Like if we were doing a full-on test, we might be able to measure how much you know, but we don't. And I don't think you want us to start doing that because that's why you sit through the program and fill out the evaluation to get that information. So we want to just make sure we have some objectives that use these verbs. And this is just a selection. You can go outside of this, but again, you want to make sure that they are measurable and not just kind of out there, like understand. It's really hard to measure someone's understanding of something, especially in the way that we're doing these programs. Again, Valerie's going to talk about that more, so I'm just going to move on. Again, program justifications, this is an APA requirement. So you need to offer 1 or more professional sources of support for the accuracy and utility of the material to be presented. At least 3 of these, if you're only offering 1, then at least 1 of these should be within the last 5 years. You don't want to make sure, have 5 sources and all 5 of them be from 30 years ago. A lot has changed in 30 years, pretty much across the board. So there will be some updated information. So you want to make sure you have some sources of support that were at least within the past 5 years. Limitations of the content to be presented. These limitations don't have to be super specific. It could be something as simple as this is a new theory. This is a new type of therapy that we're using. And so there's not a lot of not a lot of people know about it. So there's the limitation could be the fact that you have to educate, and this 1 hour program is just going to give you very basic. It's not going to, you're not going to delve into and be an expert at the end of this 1 hour program. So that's a limitation of this. So that's kind of the idea there. Another limitation could just be that you're not providing all of the information out there about this topic. And so the attendees, if they want more information, will have to get it on their own. So that's a limitation. Again, it doesn't have to be really like, it's not like no one's saying you can't learn this information, and the limitation is that there's no access to it anywhere. It's that your 1 to 3 hour program is probably not going to give everyone all of the information that they need, something along those lines. Same with the common clinical practice risks associated with the use of the material. That's the same type of a thing. You're just giving a broad overview. If someone wants to use the information based on this 1 hour program or a 3 hour program, they're not going to have all of the information that they need. So that would be a risk associated with it. Or if it's a new therapy or really very new information that's being presented, maybe some more time needs to be spent getting some background information, doing some research on this before you actually want to present or use it in therapy yourself. So that's another risk. That's just some suggestions, some examples of what you could potentially use there. It's really going to be different based on the type of program that you're offering, what information it is. So this is another area that if you have questions, you can reach out to us. Types of education program. Most of these are workshops, panel discussions. You can put a paper session, but generally what we're looking for, seeing, and accepting are just workshops. The program category, they're pretty self-explanatory: introductory, intermediate, advanced. We do have some descriptions here. This is another area that we would potentially, as the proposal selection committee, go back to a presenter. If you mark something as introductory, but it's, we think that the information looks like it delves in a little bit more, it might be more intermediate, we might come back and just ask if you're okay with changing it, and vice versa. If you mark it as advanced, but we feel that it's just really introductory information, we'll come back and ask you. But that's an easy thing to go back, and we can have a conversation. If you disagree, we'd like to hear more from you. Any of the questions that we have. You're obviously the expert when it comes to your own presentation that you're doing. So if we have questions, that's why we're coming to you, because it is an actual question. Audiovisual requirements. This is not an APA requirement. This is a me requirement. As the person who will be handling the on-site presentation, or if this is a virtual presentation, that piece, I just need to know how you want to present this. If you would like a flip chart with markers, because you'll be writing and getting feedback from the audience, and you want to share that, great. Most everyone uses a screen cart and projector, use a PowerPoint, and you get that up on a screen. That's normal. We take care of supplying the projector and the screen, what you need at the event. The only thing that we do ask from presenters is that you will have a laptop for yourself. The other thing that I request here is whether you'll be having audio, video, or needing Wi-Fi. And this is just because I need to work with the hotel to make sure that we have the appropriate things for that. So if you're unsure, just put it down. We can talk about it after your workshop is approved and accepted, and then we'll get more into those details as we get closer to the date of the presentation. It's just helpful for me doing some of that background information. And now we get back into the APA requirements. We look for an hour-by-hour breakdown of your program. So if it's a 3 hour program, you're going to do some didactic, you're going to do some group work. That's what we're looking for here. We're not looking for you to get super specific, really just an overview so we have an idea. And this is another area that we look at when you put, so you say that you're going to do a 2 hour program or 1.5 hour program, and then in the format, you have like 10 things that you're planning on doing every half hour. We might come back to you and say, this looks like it's a little much for an hour and a half. Can we look at expanding this? because things always take a little bit longer in person than you kind of think it will. So having extra time, especially if you're doing any kind of audience participation and group work, is good, because once those conversations get started, they likely continue and you find yourself cutting that short to keep things moving along. So just something to keep in mind. Moving on, the instructor, this is for the main instructor here. Again, this is all the information that is required by APA, but it is also used by the proposal selection committee as we're reviewing these applications, these proposals. You need your degree, your contact information, and then this information is helpful. Your educational background, your professional licenses, where you currently are positioned, you're currently employed, and any relevant experience that you have. So we want to make sure, and the continuing education requirement is that you are presenting information that is at a doctoral level, because most of your attendees will be doctoral level psychologists. So we want to make sure that the presenter is appropriate for the material presented. We have students present for us, but generally those students present in conjunction with a doctoral level faculty member. And we have non-doctoral level, master's level psychologists, non-psychologists present with us, but they are subject matter experts. And so that is where all of this information is really important. Ethical considerations, Dr. Lemon's going to talk about this a little bit more, but we want to make sure that as psychologists, we are being ethical and that we are not sharing information that shouldn't be shared. So we're just asking if the privacy has been safeguarded, if you are using information specifically from your practice and getting necessary permissions. Same with proprietary test materials. PPA does a lot of ethics workshops, so hopefully y'all know how to be ethical. But again, Dr. Levin's going to talk a little bit more about what that exactly means when it comes to this presentation or presenting with us. Diversity considerations, this is something that PPA is focused on moving forward. We want to make sure that our presenters are thinking about and looking at all different areas of diversity, gender, race, sexual orientation. Just kind of keep that in mind as you are writing your program, and then just share with us how you are planning to address that in your presentation. Presentation dates, that should be pretty self-explanatory. Mostly for at the convention, if you, which runs on a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday schedule, if you have a specific day and time that will work better for you, it is helpful if you give me that information so that when we're putting the schedule together, we have everything. And now some conference policies that we have, and this is PPA, giving us permission to record your presentation or using it for publicity purposes. And that is when we do our marketing, we want to list the topics that we have and list our presenters that we have. So this gives us that, you're agreeing that we can do that. Recording these presentations, obviously now we are doing a lot of virtual workshops, and we have a lot of people who are asking for virtual presentations. Some of our workshops are now being presented hybrid, so that we will have some attendees that will be attending virtually and some in person. And so the ability to record and then offer these as home studies or offer them after the fact for these people who weren't able to attend in person is really important. So that's why we have this information in here. APA does require that you disclose any real or apparent conflict of interest related to your content. If you are unsure if you have a conflict or something that might appear a conflict, please let me know, and I can walk you through it and we can decide. It generally is better to overshare in this instance than undershare, so that people don't come back later and be like, I thought this had nothing to do, you talk about this and you're actually related to this, and I feel I was lied to. We don't want that to happen. So oversharing that information is better in this situation. And then the program statements at the beginning of the proposal form, I can go back up here and we can take a look quick. just that we're recognizing and supporting diversity. We do give priority to PPA members, but we will consider proposals from non-PPA members. We're looking for active learning, not passive. So we'd like, to get the audience really involved. And then to have your presentation considered, materials must be pertinent and accurate, contribute to an area of practice, theory, or methodology, be didactic, not fully experiential, and be at the postdoctoral level and a benefit to client. So those are again, APA requirements. And so then these last couple of questions are just for us, has this program been offered previously? If so, when and where? And that is either with PPA or elsewhere. You have the option to donate your honorarium to PPA, so you can select that there. You do not have to, but that is an option. And then just to verify that this is you who are doing this and that you approve everything, you have the signature. So that is a very quick, brief overview of the call for proposal form. Again, if you have questions about any of this, you can contact me. We'll share our contact information at the end here. And otherwise, I'll turn this over to Valerie to talk about some more very specific things.
All right, so when we're talking about the program learning objectives, I've included on here, this is a direct statement from the APA regarding their definition of continuing education. So again, this isn't just something that we at PPA are requiring, but this is an APA thing so that we can offer continuing education that will go towards people's licensure, and that way, when you fill your licensure renewal form, you can click the little box that says, yes, I have all of my APA accredited continuing education. And so some of the things that the APA is looking for, right, that this has to be relevant to psychological practice, education science. We want to make sure that psychologists are keeping pace with the most current scientific evidence. That's why earlier when Judy was suggesting about how when you're including your references on your proposal form, that we want to make sure that certainly we can refer back to something that might be from a classic piece of the psychological literature, but making sure that we're really focused on current practice and science related to assessment, intervention, and education, so that psychologists are being able to maintain their competence, develop, because we want to make sure that we are doing the best work that we can as we're serving the public and presenting our profession and as aspirational a level as we possibly can. And so that writing prompt, at the conclusion of this program, participants will be able to, that's a really important prompt, because sometimes we see proposals where the focus is on what you as the presenter will do rather than what the participants will be able to do as a result of your presentation. So that's why that prompt is so important. And this comes again directly from the APA, right? Sponsors must develop an educational objective that clearly describe what the participants are expected to learn and how participants can apply this knowledge in practice or other professional contexts. So if you can keep that in mind as you're writing your proposal, right, it's not so much what you're going to be teaching, but it's what the participants will learn. One of my favorite TED Talks is from Sir Ken Robinson, when he's discussing teaching and learning, and what he makes this analogy to dieting, oh, so-and-so is dieting. Have they lost any weight? Not really. And so his point is that, are they really then dieting, right? So the parallel here is that if we say we're teaching, but our students, our participants, they didn't learn anything, then did we really teach? And so the focus is on what the learning outcomes are, not on teaching. So, Bloom's taxonomy, for everybody who is in education, this. And so the taxonomy here is, right, that we've got this hierarchy of what we want our learning outcomes to be. Again, not the focus on teaching, but the focus on learning. Right, so at the bottom of the hierarchy, we've got this remember component. So yeah, it's fine for people to be able to recall things, to state something, define it, etc. But as you move up the hierarchy of the taxonomy, right, we're getting into more and more abstraction and higher levels of cognitive inquiry and decision making and conceptualization. So when you're thinking about your objectives, you can look at, you can find all this stuff in like Google Images and stuff like that, tons and tons of Bloom's taxonomy references. I stole this from the Vanderbilt University Center of Teaching. They said I could as long as I gave them credit. So I'm giving them credit here. So, so when we think about objectives, think about what level. So, right, so maybe if you're doing a more introductory kind of program, something at remember or understand a level might make sense. Apply, analyze might be something that's a little bit more, what's that middle one, Judy? It's introductory and then something and then advanced. Intermediate, thank you. Yeah, so intermediate might be more of that apply, analyze, and then advanced would be evaluate, create. So when you're, the learning objectives, right? What do you want the participants to really be able to do? So as Judy mentioned earlier, right, this whole thing about knowing, like we can't really know what people know except by how they demonstrate it. And so that's why we want to have verbs such as, explain and describe, are at these higher levels. List or state is fine. And then, apply, evaluate, that's even at higher level. So any kind of a statement of the objective that you want to write, the focus is on what the participant will have in terms of their new knowledge or skills. Sometimes, there's some question about, like, well, will I really be able to apply this directly to my work? Well, maybe you don't work with children. And so that's why you might have some sense of like you wouldn't probably want to present if you don't yourself work with, children. And if you are yourself not a suicide expert, you wouldn't want to present on this. This is more about you as a participant. But think about who you as the presenter, who do you want to appeal to, right? It's not just people who work with children who are going to take will attend a workshop that you're presenting on children, because everybody needs, the child abuse prevention credits, and everybody needs the suicide prevention and assessment credits. So even if you weren't doing that work yourself, we should all as psychologists be able to do things like consult with a colleague. And so when we're thinking about our proposals and our workshops, we want to think from all these various angles, like you as the presenter, you're the expert. So you want to make sure that your expertise is going to get across in your objectives. But then people who are coming to your workshop, they're probably not as much of an expert as you are. They might be, but they might not be. And so want to get as broad of an audience as you can, because we want to make sure that everybody's becoming more competent in our areas. Judy, is there anything you want to add about that, the program learning objectives?
No, I really appreciate everything that you've said. I think this does tend to be a sticking point for people. Most often, if we were going to go back to someone who has completed a call for proposal form, it will be regarding the objectives. So I really like the way you explained everything.
Yeah, so here I just made up these objectives. So this is just something that we're thinking about what might cause the program the proposal selection committee to question this, right? So an example, like at the conclusion of this program, participants will be able to know more about emotion regulation. So again, it comes back to this question of like, well, how will we know? How will the participants, like, how will we, as the people who are delivering the workshop, how will we know that somebody knows something, right? And so so don't write your objective that way. A slightly better example is something like at the conclusion of this program, participants will be able to state 3 emotion regulation concepts. So, all right, so now, so right, state is at that lower level in the Bloom's taxonomy. So that's not bad, you know, that's a nice introductory kind of program. And so there's nothing wrong with that. I think an even better example is at the conclusion of this program, participants will be able to describe and apply 3 emotion regulation strategies in their clinical practice, right? So now it's not just knowing something and stating it, but it's being able to then do that higher level of, right, taking that information and going and applying it. You know, I often sit in a workshop and I think, where could I apply this? What clients do I have like right now who could benefit from this? And then at the end of this, I'm going like, I get so excited about really good workshops are the ones that make me think, I could use this strategy, or I could use this information with X, Y, and Z clients, you know, and then later on, even years later, I'll think about, wow, that was something that was relevant, you know, even later on in my practice, not just immediately, but, you know, for, you know, a few years later on, I'll think about, oh yeah, that, you know, that suicide prevention, you know, workshop that I went to helped me with this, you know, particular client who's struggling with this area. So yeah, so however you can focus on what are your participants, what do you hope that they're going to take with them and be able to apply in their clinical practice, whether this relates to education or assessment or, you know, intervention. It's all good stuff. Okay, so now switching to another section of the form, the schedule of program format. Even though APA really wants us to focus on didactic components of our workshops, at PPA, we've really found that having a mix of this, having something didactic where you know, you're teaching something, so there's something new, but then there's also some experiential component really help to create an engaging workshop format, right? So if we're just sitting in the workshop and we're sitting passively and listening to somebody talk, that's not nearly as engaging as a certain amount of, here's some information and now let's apply it, right? So it's this back and forth, and it's this nice mix of new information and the application. So we're always looking for, in that program format, in that schedule, right, that there's going to be a little bit of new information, and then what's the application or experiential component. And so again, coming directly from the APA, sponsors must include instructional methods that actively engage the learner to enhance acquisition of knowledge and, where appropriate, facilitate translation into practice. So it can't all be experiential because the APA doesn't approve that, but in order for it to be engaging and you know, and fun to be part of that learning experience, because that's what I'm always looking for, right? You know, I want my learning to be fun. So didactics and experiential, a little bit of both. So Judy mentioned earlier about how, you know, we're really looking at the instructors having, you know, a certain level of expertise and competence in their program area. So in general, you know, we're looking for people who have the highest level of their education in their particular field. And so that's where we're looking at the education trainings, supervision expertise in this content area have to be consistent with, you know, APA's standards. So students can definitely present, but we need to have somebody like a faculty member present with them. Somebody like an MSW, so Masters in Social Work, can present if they are truly, an expert in their content area, and that would be fine. And so we, as the the sponsor of these workshops, we have to really vet those instructors and make sure that they are presenting at a level that will be relevant and challenging for most of the people attending these programs will be doctoral level psychologists. So that's one of the reasons why we focus on that instructor component. Judy, anything you want to add about that?
No, you covered it. We will consider someone who is not a doctoral level psychologist, but at that point we do need to make sure that they are an appropriate person who's presenting this information, which means that they should be, an expert in the content that they're presenting, or at least have someone else who is involved. Like you said, we've had plenty of students present previously that has like a faculty person who is involved in putting the presentation together, as well as then actually presenting it to make sure that we do meet that requirement.
Right. Yeah. And co-presenting actually makes it, interesting too, because then you get a variety of voices in the room, and that can really enhance both the experience of the participants as well as for the presenters. I learn from my co-presenters all the time, and that really makes it a more vibrant experience for me, right? Because we present in part because it's hopefully enriching for us, not just disseminating information to our participants. Okay, so here are some things related to the ethical considerations. Case studies can really help the didactic nature of our workshops to really come alive and like, oh, this is a real person. However, we have to keep in mind, ethical standard 4.07 is the use of confidential information for didactic or other purposes. And because I know you have the APA ethics code memorized, I'm not going to read this for you, but I think it's important that we take these steps, right? Reasonable steps to disguise the person or organization. If you're using a particular person or organization, and that person or organization has given you consent to share this information, that's perfectly fine. But of course, it has to be informed consent. That's a whole nother section of the ethics code you can look at in your spare time. But one of the things that we encourage you to do is that instead of using just like a specific case, to create a composite character, right? So if you've got several of your patients who represent a certain diagnostic presentation, or they responded to your treatment, or it was some assessment component, that you can create this composite character, and that way you are so much less likely to accidentally disclose information about a particular client that would be very, very problematic in terms of accidentally disclosing confidential information. So yeah, consider composite characters, and that can be helpful. In terms of the diversity considerations, we just want to consider Principle E, respect for people's rights and dignity. So I've just pulled out a little section from Principle E. Psychologists are aware of and respect cultural, individual, and role differences, including those based on, and here's where it just like, there's a whole lot of diversity here for us to consider, right? Age, gender identity, race, ethnicity, culture, national origin, religion, sexual orientation, disability, language, and socioeconomic status. Oh, I get winded just reading all of those, right? So we want to consider these, as part of our presentations, right? Sometimes I think we sometimes limit diversity to just, one of these aspects, but let's make sure that we're highlighting, a number of these diversity issues as we are writing our proposals and delivering our programs, so that we are really sensitive to a number of people groups. That is the end of the content that I have prepared for today. We want to thank you for watching what we hope was an informative presentation for you all today. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and come back to Judy and say anything that you want to add as we wrap up today.
The only thing I'm going to do is share contact information, which I mentioned that I would do. So here, here's my email address and Valerie's. I think we're both available. If you have questions, you can also contact the PPA office. And there's my office number. That's my direct line. So you can reach me that way too. But yeah, we're definitely willing to have conversations, answer questions, or if you just aren't sure, we're willing to talk you through this. We want it to be a really good experience filling out a call for proposal form or going through this process. So we just hope that this was helpful again, as Valerie said, and that you'll reach out if you have questions.
Yeah, when I first started writing proposals, I was like, wait, I don't know how to do this. And so I just asked questions of PPA staff, and it was really, really helpful. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to talk through these points with Judy today, because yes, the goal is to be helpful, not to make this an onerous or an untenable experience for you. Like I can't even answer these questions. I don't know what you're looking for. Hopefully now you have a better idea about what we're looking for, and if not, please contact us.
Great. Thank you very much, Valerie. Thanks everyone for viewing. Have a great day.